Now for business updates across the globe, Rotus Odiri joins us. Good morning, Rotus.
Good morning, Doctor. Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning, all our viewers out there. Welcome to a new week. It's, very memorable September 11th day here. Oil prices touching $90 a barrel again. Just checked prices this morning, although just down by about 23 basis points earlier. West Texas Intermediate, U.S. Blend, 87.01. So look, I mean, with Russia, of course, saying that they're going to maintain their export cuts. Saudi Arabia also talking about their voluntary cuts, keeping that up until December, supporting prices. And so you know what that means on the flip side for us. It's a double, it's a two sides to the same coin. In that it's going to revive the subsidy talks again. We're going to, of course, be hearing from oil marketers about what the landing cost of fuel is. You saw our trade numbers on Friday, even though I think it was machine equipment and other stuff that actually narrowly edged out refined petrol imports, which came out about 1.6 trillion or so last for the second quarter. So, that's going to be the conversation again with respect to where oil prices are and whether this can be maintained. We're heading into, winter, period soon. And so that's going to, of course, raise energy demand in a number of nations around the world that want to stay warm. So, of course, that's going to be very much part of the conversation. So, again, oil price, remember Goldman Sachs, I think, said we would see $86 a barrel oil by the end of the year. And here we are at 90. We go to this tragic earthquake in Morocco, the biggest one in 120 years or so. Death toll now is over 2,100. The U.S. Geological Survey, they're coming out saying that it could impact GDP to the tune of anywhere from 2 to 8%, which comes out to anywhere from $2 to $10 billion in damage. You saw the damage in Syria and Turkey that killed over 50,000 people. So, as they say, within the next 72 hours is the key period to try to rescue as many people as possible. And sadly, you're going to be seeing, possibly that death toll rise. In the tourism sector, particularly, also going to be hit for Morocco. And they rely heavily on tourism dollars coming into their nation to look at, the different things there. So, really sad occurrence that's happened over there. We come to I think the G20. We've already covered the fact that, the president meeting with a number of leaders there. He's talking about Nigeria joining, saying Nigeria is poised, able, and willing to be a major player in this family of the G20 and in shaping a new world without whom the family will remain incomplete. Also saying that, of course, Nigeria can contribute to a more equitable world. Very interesting that following BRICS, where the Vice President Shetimas came out saying, hey, look, Nigeria didn't even apply to join when people are asking whether we join BRICS. Here you have President Tinubu openly saying that Nigeria could play a major role within the G20 and wants to contribute to shaping a more equitable world. South Africa, of course, is the only nation on the African continent that is a member of the G20. And they're also a member of BRICS. I wonder if Mr. Ramaphosa is... Okay, let me not start anything. But anyway, Nigeria has made it clear that they rank the G20 much higher than they rank BRICS. And of course, when you look at the people President Tinubu met from, Ursula von der Leyen, Olaf Scholz, who was wearing an eye patch because he had an accident when he was jogging last Saturday or so, to Joe Biden, Narendra Modi. There's, of course, lots of high value there. And of course, even the US, Europe, and I think the Middle Eastern players, even India, look to be setting up a rail system that's going to connect the Middle East to Europe that is supposed to combat the Belt and Road Initiative from China. So that is likely to irritate Xi Jinping, who, of course, skipped this summit. And you've got Narendra Modi, who, of course, has had some friction with Xi Jinping over a number of things coming out of the G20. So if you look at the geopolitical narrative that unfolds from all of this, it's going to be very, very, very interesting coming out. Speaking of a more equitable world, incredibly, I'm just looking for an excuse to praise Djokovic and Coco Gauff. So that's Billie Jean King, of course, in the purple jacket. She famously, when she won the US Open in 1972, she earned about $15,000 or $20,000 less than, was it Ken Rosewall? I can't remember who won it in 1972, but she famously refused to play in 1973 unless she was paid equally. And so since 1973, the US Open has been the first Grand Slam to pay both male and female athletes equally. So, Djokovic, earning $3 million, by the way, is about 2.8 billion naira if you use which by the way, the parallel market is at 930 now. So that's a lot of money. And you will argue that the average American got more utility or more fulfillment from Coco Gauff winning her first U.S. Open as a teenager, first time since Serena Williams did it, than Djokovic getting his 24th Grand Slam. So, that comment she made where she thanked Billie Jean King, who is a social activist in addition to being a legendary player, it just brought out that whole corporate talk about, equal pay for equal work. That's our update for today.
All right, so a couple of things. Congrats to Coco Gauff. What else can I say? But for me, when I see stories like that and I hear $15,000 was the prize money in 73, it just makes my heart bleed for Nigeria.
No, so she earned 15,000 less than her male counterpart. Yeah.
So it just makes my heart bleed for Nigeria because I also want to tell a story.
Yeah.
There used to be a tennis invitational organized by somebody called Lord Rumens in Nigeria that was said to have as much as the prize money in Wimbledon.
Wow.
In fact, Otto Ashe played in Nigeria.
Yeah.
All the top big tennis stars at the tennis court here in Lagos. And in fact, it was in 76 big that Otto Ashe could come play in Nigeria. We don't have that any longer. It just shows how things have gone down south. But we can actually kick things back up again and start all over again. And it just segues into the conversation about foreign trade you're talking about. So another very interesting fun fact, the fact that I see what is happening between this G20 thing and all of that. One other country too that is part of the G20 and also part of BRIC is Brazil.
Yeah.
India is leading the way now, and I see what is happening. Prior to the 18th century, before the Raj came, India and China cumulatively used to have close to half of the world's GDP.
Yeah.
They were very prominent economies. And that's the fight India is fighting all over again with what it's trying to do with this unity initiative. Because China has led the way already with the Belt and Road Initiative. They've got a train line that spans up to Russia and that goes into Europe. I think that terminates in Düsseldorf. And India too is trying to build the same to be able to challenge China as regards this. But when you look at it, both economies are doing quite well. India is about 3-4 trillion GDP. China's, second biggest economy in the world. So the economies that were colonized by the Portuguese, in terms of when you say the Portuguese taking Macau of China back in the days and all of that, those economies are having a resurgence.
They're flexing.
And little wonder Napoleon said China was a sleeping giant. If he wakes, he will shake the world. And it's part of that supremacy fight against the Americans, and that's what is happening. Thucydides talks about this when he wrote about the Peloponnesian Wars, and it's sort of like the Thucydides trap again. So, game time, the world.
Game time. It's very interesting occurrences coming out from there. Thanks for that.
So, talking about equal pay, of course, it's making me very glad this morning. And even Arena Sabalenka, whom Coco Gauff beat to winning the champ, talk about strengths, the efforts that men make, and now you talked about the value in terms of viewing value. I think it only makes sense, and I'm really glad. They've said that by 2026 or 2033. They're looking to get equal pay in tennis across all competitions, especially 500, 1,000 level competitions. So that is really great news. Venus Williams, different stars have fought and advocated for equal pay. So it's good to see that. And I'm hoping that it would trickle beyond sports to other industries. I know around the world, this is a conversation that's being had, that women will earn as equal pay as men. But I wanted to draw your attention very quickly to the fact that German company BMW is investing millions of pounds in building a Mini, that's the car maker factory close to Oxford. And just your post about the electric vehicle station you saw by one of the banks on here in Victoria Island, and perhaps for us to begin to have those conversations. In India, New Delhi, the president had investment conversations with people who were interested in, pumping some money here in Nigeria. Perhaps that's the future. England is attracting, millions of pounds for electric vehicles, plants in their country. I'm hoping that Nigeria in the near future can also tap into that. EV is the future. We need to start looking into that.
Well said. Well,
two quick things. Before you joined us on this G20 matter, I raised a question. I said, yes, it may be a good thing for Nigeria to aspire to be a member of the G20. It will give us diplomatic influence, of course. It will open up to opportunities for cooperation, collaboration with other countries, advanced economies. But when Nigerians talk about South Africa being at the table and Nigeria not being there, it's usually from an emotional, patriotic, dimension that they approach the subject. But the issue is, do we have what it takes at home? How strong is our domestic economy? Do we have a secure environment? Do we have an enabling environment? Do we have the skill set to be able to engage, at that level, beyond just saying, oh, Nigeria wants to be at the table? Because if you look at the countries that benefit from being members of G20, like Brazil, they at least have something to put on the table. So it's about Nigeria also looking inwards and looking for, where to develop better. Now, second, about gender pay gap. That's the title of it. Well, we've been on this subject since 1970, in various sports, but a lot of progress has been made. Okay? In soccer, for example, you recall the U.S. soccer team at the time, they were saying, no, it should be equal work for equal pay. Yeah. And in other, even in business, women saying, look, the discrimination against women is not acceptable. However, it's interesting that you are putting Djokovic and Coco Gauff in the same story about equal pay. Yeah. Because you recall that Novak Djokovic was famously once quoted as saying that, look, male tennis players deserve to be paid more because they draw more attention.
He lashed him for that. So.
well, but he said so. Yeah. And now you are talking about him and Coco Gauff earning the same amount. But the truth of the matter is that in terms of reality, women are not at the top echelons of many of these sports organizations. That places them at a disadvantage. Media coverage doesn't always favor women. Right. Even the media, sometimes the language can be very sexist and condescending. Number three, one of the issues is the point raised in the past by Djokovic that women don't attract, enough viewership. But the truth of the matter is that we have been seeing changes since the, Women's World Cup in France, and also the recent Women's World Cup in Australia and New Zealand, and even in Europe, we've seen female football, filling out, record. Numbers in various stadiums across Europe. So progress is being made. Indeed. One report says about 83% of sports have tried to adjust, our payment. And with more, female superstars emerging, then of course with time we'll get there. The women, there's this disadvantage also of motherhood. Right. So they get to the peak, then they go sideways to go and have start a family and all of that. They're exposed to certain challenges that male, sports persons are not necessarily exposed to. But the whole objective is about non-discrimination in the workplace, not just in sports, but generally. Indeed. Thank you, Rotus.
Thank you.